Hey, Cincinnati Soccer Talk. My name is Kristi Kivi, and I'll be your host today for our brand new series, Art of Soccer. Art of Soccer highlights unique individuals who are blending their love of the game with their creative outlets. Today's guest is none other than Cheyenne from Between Clean Sheets. Cheyenne quit her full-time job in Washington, D.C. to travel around in a 94 Toyota Hiace to experience soccer across North America. Cheyenne, welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't want
Yeah.
to deceive anyone, but I'm not in the van right now, but it is within view, parked outside in the driveway of my brother's place right now, near Atlanta.
Nice. I love Atlanta.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background and how this kind of van life journey came to be for you.
Heavens. Yeah, of course, my love of soccer started very young, and I went to a women's college in Central Georgia and played Division III soccer, which at the time took every ounce of energy and sense of commitment and discipline that I could muster. And I really, really enjoyed the experience. But when I got out of college and realized that the traditional college experience meant that you had a fandom of your alma mater's football team, I thought, well, I don't have anything that feels like that. My family likes sports, but we were never diehards of any particular team in any particular sport. And so when I moved to DC right after I graduated, I was playing pickup soccer and co-ed soccer with some folks that I worked with, and everyone loved going to the bar on Saturday and Sunday mornings to watch Premier League. But realizing that DC United was right down the street and that there were plenty of U.S. soccer games to go and experience as the sport was becoming popular in the 2010s, I decided, oh, you know what? Being a season ticket holder at DC United would be fun. Inviting friends would be fun. Maybe catching them up on things to know about MLS would probably make it more enjoyable. And so the creative outlet I did not have in my job, I used to create Between Clean Sheets, mostly to just inform my friends that, hey, you don't have to care about soccer in America every 4 years when the World Cup happens because it's happening in our backyard. So I think, as I'm sure everyone is aware, DC is just such a it's such a difficult place to be right now. And I was really not itching to stay. I was not itching to stay and fight a fight that I just did not want to be a part of anymore. And so a good friend of mine, her husband imports Japanese vehicles, and I'd seen them import tons of Land Cruisers, Hilux, Hiace, some really cute like Suzuki, Mitsubishi cars and other Toyotas. And I was ready to take the plunge to travel the way that I was on the weekends for all these years, but to make it a full-blown thing and really take my time in every community I was going to. And a Hiace seemed like a pretty easy, low-stakes commitment to do so. Like you said, it's a 1994, so it's old and it's quite small. It's about 66 square feet of living space, but it really does force me to get up and out and to meet people and to do things. So that is the quest I'm on. I picked it up last April at port in Tacoma, Washington, drove it back east, and the first 2 weeks of the MLS season, I hung out in Florida. I'm in Georgia right now, and then in the next few weeks, I'll be making my way up to North Carolina. So we're having fun so far, but I'm really taking my time with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can definitely relate to, for one, I grew up outside of DC, so I know how
Yeah. Yes.
suffocating that city can be. It's definitely hard to kind of feel like there's a world outside of it when you're living in it.
Mm-hmm.
As well as the kind of the fact that there's so much community in soccer in America, and there's so much that it brings that I didn't know about for a really long time. And so that has been like a joy for me personally to like experience. And I can't even imagine doing it at the level that you're doing it at as well. So I think
Thank
that's great.
you. Yeah, I should tell everybody. I think I got my start in Major League Soccer. I've made so much content about Major League Soccer. I have a fantastic vlog I made from visiting FC Cincinnati's stadium when it was still being built, which was really so much fun. But I am following soccer at literally every level. I think last year I went to the Big 12 Women's Soccer Championship. I've gone to every level of USL. The Super League, the USL Super League, I've already gone to games for in in Florida. So there's soccer. If you peel back one little layer beyond MLS, you'll realize there is entirely too much soccer going on right now. And I know TQL is hosting even a Club World Cup game.
Yes, we are.
So yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed, but I'm excited.
Yeah, that's actually something that I was going to ask you. Can you highlight kind of the differences that you've seen at all the different levels and leagues that you've experienced?
Yes. So Major League Soccer, of course, I think these past 2 years more than ever is trying to take itself very, very seriously. And there's ways that manifests that I really like. I think TQL Stadium is a great example, a world-class stadium, soccer specific, that fits the culture, and it also fits the landscape, like physical landscape. I think it being downtown and among a very interesting historical space does really well to help build a brand. And one thing that I think ties all of these leagues together is branding. Branding is half the battle. Finding some roots that feel super local and feel like people that are from the area do have a buy-in, even if the team is not good, they're still going to show up. I think as you get to these lower divisions, it's more obvious that a lot of the decisions made are even more than soccer. I'll take Statesboro, Georgia, where South Georgia Tormenta plays. They're in USL League One. They have like an entire shopping center that is being built with their stadium. The idea is, of course, like, yes, come for the game, come for soccer, come for Tormenta, but we know that making a financial decision that's just based on soccer in such a small market may not be lucrative if we're not offering these other things as part of the package. And I've definitely seen that with some of these smaller leagues. But the other thing that being small lends itself to is making a lot of great creative decisions that don't have the overhead decision makers at a level like MLS saying, no, you need to get in line, or don't put too much effort in, or here are all the orders that Apple TV is giving us this year for MLS season pass. You need to march to these orders. So yeah, I think that more grassroots feeling exists in these lower divisions than I would say MLS does, but that does not mean that I'm not enjoying the leagues all the same.
Yeah, and I think that totally makes sense. And I think it's interesting to see how that manifests in different cities as well, because Cincinnati, for example, I think was a huge kind of anomaly when we were in the USL. Everyone was bought in immediately,
Right.
which is not typically the case with those lower leagues, or for example, with some of the women's leagues. I think, like you said, a lot of them usually have to have kind of another piece to offer, another approach to kind of getting fans in the stands and things. And so Cincinnati was a weird case, I think, a positive weird case, but definitely a weird case where it was like everyone was bought in almost immediately.
Yeah.
And then the transition to MLS was from a fan
Interesting.
perspective, like fan engagement, fan experience, pretty seamless. From a play perspective, maybe a little bit more difficult for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing kind of how certain teams and cities approach that and take on that journey, I think is really interesting. And I think it's so cool that you get to see all the different levels there, especially when there's like soccer on, like you said, on every level exists in America.
Right.
All the way from the youth leagues to the highest international teams. And so I think that that's a really cool thing that people don't realize, is like how accessible it can be if you're not just focusing on going to like a USA Mexico World Cup qualifier, for example, you know?
Right. And I will say it seems crazy when I think about it from an economic perspective, watching some of these USL League One and League Two teams pop up. I think, man, even to be in a good market and to have decent buy-in, like, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like from a from a financial perspective. But the one thing that I am reminded of every time I show up in a smaller community is that just having the team there means that they have an academy there. And that means there are kids whose parents are not having to drive them the extra hour to go have a shot at playing seriously at a younger age. And that to me is big, because I think everywhere I lived. I grew up mostly in Southern California. And by the time I got to Georgia, I think I had played club ball for the 2 years I was there in high school. But Morgan Bryan, who plays now at Orlando Pride, but was a U.S. women's national team player in the mid 2010s. I remember she would have played at our club team, but she'd kind of outpaced us all in that capacity, and for that reason was driving down to Jacksonville. And from where we were, that's, oh my gosh, that's an hour each way to go play with a completely different set of people. And that's not to say the expectation is we would have an academy where we were living, where I graduated high school, but for some of these places, that's huge. That's huge for kids. And
absolutely.
I really have to remind myself of that, because it's easy to forget. Because by the way, my content has been largely fan POV, and I sometimes have to remind myself, like, it's not all about the fan. I don't think a lot of it would exist without us, but there's so much more that goes on besides how I am experiencing something. So
yeah, no, I agree with that too. Being so kind of involved in the behind the scenes for me with FC Cincinnati and the fan experience and the supporters groups, it's very easy for me to like get blinded by that and then talk to a stranger and be like, yeah, when we were working on our drums and our chants and the tifos, and they're like, what are you possibly talking about? And like just like talking about things that are so secondhand to me now that I didn't know about 10 years ago, but it just becomes like ingrained in you. And so it's hard to definitely kind of separate the idea of it from itself when you're so close.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I want to talk about van life just a little bit.
Yes.
Because van life is not for the weak.
No.
What has been the biggest surprise for you, both good and bad, about this experience?
I'll start with the bad. I think I am continuously amazed at how easy it is to forget things in that small of a space. I feel like doing my research on YouTube, I grew up camping. My family had an RV. I think my parents have a Sprinter van now. And when I began floating this idea without really explaining the Toyota Hiace, which is what makes it so different and so unique, I feel like everyone was like, oh, you're going to get a Ford Transit or a Sprinter. That's so awesome. And Sprinters are so expensive. The people who are doing van life and it's picturesque, the ones who are making a living doing it on YouTube, are no different than the clean girl aesthetic, like corporate girly, fancy influencers in any given city. They have money. And I think because I was quitting my career and really stepping out, not to make content, but for my mental health and to find a way to be a better member of society, I felt like, as I said earlier, the Hiace was such a smart decision for me, because I knew if I hated the whole thing, even a month in, I could walk away and I would have maybe lost $10,000. Now, the wild thing is I really, really love living in it. I think it really challenges the things I've always thought about myself. I consider myself a very resourceful person. I'm pretty introverted, but I'm good at relationship building. I love the community of people that I've built on social media so far, and they've all been so incredibly helpful in situations where I am out on my own, nobody in a random city. That was something I learned last year that I really appreciated, was people just showing up and offering things that I never even asked for. But yeah, I cannot stress enough. It's a 6 feet wide by 11 feet long, and it's got enough space for a bench that pulls out into a very comfy twin bed. I've got space for storage and a little pull-out desk for my computer. And it's urban camping, so I'm not really staying at campgrounds. I'm kind of staying in and among the community, and that is probably my favorite part about it, because it means I can essentially cosplay being a local. I'm just waking up, having parked on the street, and you're the one that's sleeping in your bed. And inside. So one of my favorite kind of like game days that I'm finishing editing the footage for was just obviously just this year, was in Orlando. They have a downtown stadium as well. They have a really, really beautiful residential space just to the east of the highway. And I had parked right outside a church and woke up in the morning and looked outside my window as these gals were helping their friend move into their new place, and got dressed, got out, walked around, went and grabbed a little tea and did my morning walk as if I lived in the neighborhood, and then thought, like, these are okay. Orlando City fans are among me. I can see because they're already wearing their jerseys, and this is their game day routine. I'm not getting the coolest, most outrageous pyrotechnics all day, literally or metaphorically, but I am getting a real taste for what it's like to be a fan in a city. And that's something that I really, really enjoy, because I don't think I would get that in previous years where I was just escaping my job to fly somewhere for a weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's a really unique piece of what you're doing specifically. I think experiencing it at the same level that like a normal everyday person in that city would is very different than a lot of people who go around and do soccer journalism and get flown in and are sitting in the press box and meet all these big wigs and have access to all these things. I think being able to experience it the way that someone like me would, I think is very, very cool. So I think that tells a lot more, in my opinion, about the city, the fans, the team. I think that shows a lot more than you would kind of get on the other side, at least for
Yeah.
content that I like consuming.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I go back to this so much. I do think MLS is making great strides, but I also think that they are attempting to be way cooler than they are. And this Onside documentary that I reopened my Apple TV account for, the first 3 episodes are conversations about, I'll give the Hell is Real second episode as a great example. The buy-in there is obvious. I'm watching an explanation of a rivalry that I myself have experienced and love. I love the Ohio rivalry. But Lucho doesn't play at Cincinnati anymore. So that entire storyline, if you didn't know, you'd tune in and be like, oh, where is he? And league MVP, where is he? And same for Columbus. You're like, oh, this whole storyline about Cucho. Oh, cool. I want to watch that. Where is he? He's not there anymore. And I just feel like there's so much, what's the word I'm looking for? There are too many moving pieces in Major League Soccer for us to bank on someone staying at a team for long enough to really build like a franchise player. And even then, if you cared enough about those episodes to dig deeper, you'd realize, yeah, I think Hell is Real has always been a thing, but there was a time where no one in Cincinnati was thinking that they were really contending in a real way. They were in a transition that I think took up quite a few of those first few seasons, and really had an effect on how they showed up in league standings. And so there's any given day, I'm going to show up to an MLS game and be like, this is the most boring thing I've ever watched. But if I'm in a supporter section and making friends with the people around me, they're like, yeah, this is the kind of season we're having. But you know what? Here's where we go after the game. Here's where we play pickup during the week. Here are the places that our supporters group volunteers at. Here are the kind of things that we care about. Infrastructure, so like of supporter relations is important to me. The way that the most avid fans still act like they're in a student council and diligently negotiating with a team to get the kind of accommodations that allow a team to then use them for vibes in the stadium and for content when the game's over. I really think all of that is something that I like to experience in person and have conversations with people about in person, because I've learned that Twitter is never going to give the full answer for that sort of thing. And I don't think that teams have the bandwidth to really dive deep on those storylines.
Yeah, and that's another thing that like before I was in it, I had no concept or understanding of it. And now I'm on the board of one of the FC Cincinnati supporters groups, and
I
I'm very
love that.
involved in the back end stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it definitely is, it's crazy to see the like how nuanced it is and how complex those relationships can be when you like our relationship with our FO is wonderful. It's a pretty open two-way street. Like when we ask for things that we need from them, they're very accommodating. They are very like forward with us on things that are happening. Our relationship is very good, I would say. And I know that's not the case for a lot of other MLS teams and their supporters groups. And so I think
Yeah.
like just even understanding that concept and how much it affects the game day experience and the fan experience is something that like the normal average fan just wouldn't get. And so I think I agree that's a really, really cool way to experience it. And on top of that, I think another thing that you said that really resonates with me personally is that just going to an MLS game and watching an MLS game with no like buy-in almost is boring. Like, yes,
Yeah.
I can watch it from like a former player's perspective, as like a soccer fan. Like I can look at the style of play, I can look at the coaching tactics. But for me, I think the best thing about really any sport is kind of the culture that surrounds it. And I went to an SEC school. I went to Tennessee for college, and so
Oh, so you
like
you
going to the
understand.
University of Tennessee, I loved football growing up. We were a big football household, but seeing all of my friends who like couldn't have cared less about the football game, but experienced the entire culture around it, from tailgating to picking out your outfits to, meeting up with people and painting banners and things like that. Culture around it, I think, resonates a lot more with me because I love sports. I'll always love sports. But the cool part of it for me is the community behind it, the experiences, the people involved. Because at the end of the day, it's not, for me, it's not, I just don't care that much about a bunch of athletes making millions of dollars when I can care about my experience and everyone else's experience of that as well. And
Yes.
don't get me wrong, I love our players. I'm glad that they make money. They're very good at what they do.
No, but I get you. I totally
like, as
get
a
you.
fan, you want to feel connected. You want to feel important. I think that's a really cool thing. And that's also what I find really, really cool about the NWSL is that they are really great at focusing on that culture and connection piece. I think they bring
Yes.
in a totally different subset of fans that the MLS has kind of left untapped in most places because of the way that they talk to their fans. They have that engagement and fan experience piece. And I think part of that is kind of unfortunate because women's teams tend to have to do that because people don't buy in for just the soccer like they do with the men's. But I think it's also kind of a superpower because the fans stay. Like once you are a part of like a fandom for the NWSL or the US Women's National Team and you see everything that it encompasses, it makes it a lot easier to stay invested, in my opinion.
Right. I agree. I think some of my best experiences with supporters groups last year were at NWSL games. And right as you said that, I immediately thought of the weekend where I was able to see both the Thorns host Seattle Reign and then the Timbers host the Sounders. So it was Cascadia Cup all around in the same weekend. I was just, I want you to know, when I find out that the schedule works out for me like that in the van, my brain like absolutely explodes. And of course, the women's game was first on Saturday and the men's game was Sunday. And when I showed up to the women's game, I had walked into the supporter section and was immediately clocked by a capo who came and said, "I'm so-and-so. I'll be your capo for today. Is this your first time? If so, here's our little book of chants. Just know XYZ. Be on the lookout for this. And we welcome everybody." And I thought, oh my gosh, I am so cared for here. So cared for. And the men's side, they were louder. And I think that they are more well established because they had been around long enough to kind of develop this culture. And I really respected them. But I thought, oh, I actually am getting the sense that they don't care if I'm here or not. So even my content strategy was different when I realized that. I thought, oh, the women are like, they're doing, this is where I get really existential with it, to your point about, I don't want to think too hard about what sports actually is. And for NFL and NBA and these major sports in our country, Major League Baseball. The inflated contracts, the lack of care for the individual, and a lack of attention to mental health, and the exploitation, I think, of them, of us and our money, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like supporters groups for NWSL teams are missionaries. They are truly unpaid, unsung heroes for the way that they really welcome and retain these relationships. And I was a traveler. It was unlikely that they were going to see me again anytime soon, but they didn't know that. They're like, you're here. This is how you participate. This is how we all be loud. And man, I absolutely loved it. It felt so welcoming. And it, like I said, completely changed the approach that I had to content, because I was finally feeling comfortable to say, hey, I'm going to take a video of myself. Do you mind if I take a video of myself? Whereas at the Timbers game, I was like, okay, like I'll just hold my phone right here. So great games. Both of them were great games, but marketable difference.
Yes, definitely. And I think I was really, really violently disappointed that we did not get the NWSL bid, because again, I think Cincinnati is an anomaly in a lot of ways. And there was like market research done that cities that have both an MLS and an NWSL team have very little overlap of fans. And I truly, truly believe Cincinnati would have been a complete outlier in that, and that we would have had much more overlap than those other cities. I know from personal experience of people I know in the supporters groups and things, people were very excited about the prospect of the NWSL team. And like not just like wanting it to be here, but wanting to be involved, wanting to capo and drum for those games too, wanting to start supporters groups for that team as well, doing anything we could from kind of to help build it from the ground up. And so I would have loved to see that manifest in a community like Cincinnati that is so truly community based. Like I came in and I moved here in 2020 at the peak of COVID. I met my friend Zach watching a soccer game at a bar, and he invited my husband and I to come to an FC Cincinnati game. He told my husband to drum, because my husband has drummed since he was like 2 years old. So he started drumming at the games just like for fun. I got bored and was like, well, I want to drum at the games. And things just like snowballed and spiraled. And I had very little intention of staying in Cincinnati like long term. And now it's like, okay, well, maybe one day if the economy's fine, we'll buy a house here. Like what we've been able to build through soccer here is kind of crazy to look at. I just never would have thought that would have been the opened door for me to like fall in love with this place, because I had no connection here before either. I interned in college and then came back because I was like, okay, good enough. And so
I'll try this.
Yeah. And like, I had not really been here before. I'm not from here. I'm not from the Midwest even. And so being able to just be integrated into things so quickly and with like such open arms from our fans and our community was, I think, a very unique experience. And I would have loved to see that again for other people with the NWSL team as well, which was...
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, and then went to University of Tennessee. So
beautiful.
Kind of all over, but I grew up in Annapolis for 18 years.
Yeah, I should say this. I think anyone listening right now, and hopefully most people by now have figured out, like, Cincinnati is a really cool city. What I have grown not tired of, because I continue fighting it with the same energy I've always had, but I find it so disappointing when I have conversations with people who are like, Cincinnati? And you're like, okay, that tells me you've literally never been there, or you're incapable of having fun. And that I don't know how to fix that for you. But I had taken a break and worked during the 2018 midterms in Kansas City. I was traveling a ton, but I was based in Kansas City, thinking I would get away for a cycle and take a breather and return. And I would talk to people about Kansas City, and they're like, Kansas City? I was like, tell me you've never been to Kansas City, because if you had gone and also made friends with the kind of people that have spent far more time there than you have, it's as easy as asking. And that's what I find myself doing at these games. Like, hey, I'm here for X amount of time. If there's one thing about this city that you would say, like, you have to do that isn't something I could easily Google. Like, what would you say? And those are the times where I find my appreciation for wherever I am grows exponentially. And Cincinnati I truly am not joking when I say, as someone who has never lived there, has only gone a couple of times, and most of the time it's been because of soccer, but I've had the pleasure of hanging out before and after. World-class city. Like I am missing and so desperate for the kind of history that the East provides and reminds us all of. And Ohio has always been one of those places that produces historical figures. I mean, we've got tons of presidents from Ohio. I feel like it's such an interesting place. And Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland, all three of those cities are places where people are truly like not only proud to be there from there, but also willing to stay and to put the work in to continue making it a city worth living in. Most people are just so desperate to get out of their hometown, their home state. And I find when people return to Ohio, if they have left, they're like, oh my gosh, like this feels right. I'm comfortable here. And
Yes.
I really, really like people from Ohio. I think they're incredibly down to earth and not trying to prove anything to anyone. So it's going to be, I don't think it's been announced on my tour list yet because I have only published through the 1st of May, but I did reach out to some friends to confirm I will be in Ohio at some point in May and potentially June and July.
Perfect. I was gonna ask you later, like, do we get an exclusive? Are you gonna be here?
Actually, I'm going to give you an exclusive. Let me pull up my GCal.
Because we would love to have you. I know.
Yes.
I would love to show you from a supporter's perspective anything you want in Cincinnati, but especially in TQL Stadium. I think you would really, really enjoy it.
I absolutely, I love the vibe. I think the games that I've gone to, unfortunately, I need to be honest. DC United, we did our thing. I'm no longer interested in being a DC United supporter. I have a special place in my heart for them. I have the PTSD from being locked into a 5-year season ticket member contract at the club level that I've railed against for years. I hope they're doing well, but I don't think of them that much. However, so many of my experiences before I was willing to step out were based on my experiences during this away travel, where it was literally like Friday I'm flying out, Sunday I'm flying home. What can I do? I'll eat breakfast at the place you recommend. I'll pregame at the place you recommend. I'm going to the game. I'm done. I did that for DC. Oh, when was that? I think Lucho might have still been playing for us, actually. I can't remember what year it was, but I think it was my first experience at TQL after having gone to tour the stadium as it was being built. And the thing about DC is when you are basing your travel on where they're headed, you are signing yourself up for more often than not the greatest game. Again, say that with all the love and respect, but I do know, so my exclusive here is FC Cincinnati related, but not at TQL. I will be at Hell is Real on May 17th.
Okay.
At lower.com. So the transition from, I'll be in Kentucky on the 1st of May. That's how far I've published.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity for me here, again, remembering the history with DC, I could either have gone from North Carolina and continued up kind of like 95 to the Northeast, or I thought I could just, kind of head in the slight opposite direction and do. I can't believe Kentucky has as many teams as they do. The fact that they have an NWSL team is crazy. But to be able to drive from North Carolina to Kentucky up through Ohio, and then I know I'm going to kind of curve my way up to Toronto. I have, by the way, 6 stadiums. I think we're not going to include San Diego because I've been to that stadium, but not for San Diego FC. And I know they're brand new, but I have 6 MLS stadiums left on my list before I am.
That is impressive.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is they're all basically they're all in the Northeast except for Houston.
Oh, wow.
For some reason, I was willing to travel to San Jose and Minneapolis of all places to see DC, like outside of the conference, but Eastern Conference play, I was like, oh, I won't go. It's NYC, and I want to see them before they leave Yankee Stadium, Gillette Stadium, where the Revs play. I should never be guilted for having that so far down the list. Toronto, Montreal, Charlotte, which is crazy that I haven't gone yet, and then Houston and San Diego. So yeah, they're like all Northeast. I don't know how I managed to not do that. I could have very easily crossed most of those off the list, but
Well, I'm sure you'll have a great time when you get to them. I would love to go to one of the Canadian stadiums. That is like big bucket list for me. I've also never been to Canada, which is crazy. I've been to
it's
many
right
countries, but I know I'm like leaving it as I'm trying to get to 30 countries by the time I'm 30, and so I'm leaving it as the easy check off.
How far along are you in that?
I'm at 23, I think, and I'm 27 years old. So I could probably do it. I could probably just spend like a month in Europe, but we'll see.
Oh yeah, that's once you get to one country. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, the amount of DMs I get that ask, oh, would I ever do this for Premier League? I'm like, no, because what's the driving? It doesn't like that. You're not driving hardly anywhere. You spit and you're like, oh, there's our other rival. Like they're all so close together.
Yeah.
And I also get questions about, oh man, people are like, do you think you're going to make it? Because the whole reason I had to make a long story short, the whole reason I had imported into Washington State instead of Baltimore, which is where my buddy normally imports, is because that bridge had collapsed right as I was.
Oh yeah, Project Key.
Yeah, putting my the van, closed at auction, got everything paid for, trying to find a shipping container to put it on. That happened, and I was so, cannot stress this enough. I'm doing this again for my own mental health. I would love to make a full-blown career out of it, but the concept of content creation is another thing I get very existential about, and I have some weird moral and ethical hangups about the way that I want to engage with people as things are popping up for 2026 and beyond in this country. I really appreciate that there are a lot of people making content, but there's so many people taking the content that I'm working hard for and that you're working hard for and just repackaging it for their own platform. And I strive to be original for a reason, mostly because it's authentic to me, but also I went to the World Cup in 2022 by myself. I think that was a big catalyst for me deciding to leave my life and career situation. But watching the way that it was mostly men, because it was the men's World Cup, and Doha was also a very weird place for people to get to. So they'd see something happening and immediately their phone was out and they're just kind of in your face. Oh, this might be interesting. My phone is now in a stranger's face in order to capture content. And I just thought, who are you? Who am I? Yeah, sure, you're going to capture this. It's going to get tons of views and lots of engagement, but I don't want to disrespect people's personal space like that. I don't want to make people the background to my life. I don't want to be the protagonist or the main character. I don't want to have that kind of energy. And I just, it's made things different for me and my approach to content. But I think that where I'm at right now, I'm doing my best to enjoy it for what it is and provide people something I don't think that they're seeing. But I am a one woman show trying my best, and I feel like, I don't know, it's a lot. I'm learning a lot, and I think that I never intended for it to be what it is, because it was very hard to envision all of this. But the reality of it is I was already taking a lot of my time, to go back to my original thought. I was already taking my time with a lot of it, enjoying taking things slowly, consuming things at my own level and not becoming overwhelmed or overstimulated with the expectation to perform. But I do get a lot of DMs that are like, oh, you're in Washington State right now. Do you think you're going to get to the game in Miami next week? I'm like,
Like,
You
you
know how
can't say that.
long of a drive that is?
Just
My
drive
and
12 hours a day every day. Come on.
That's yeah, I had published just through May, and people are like, "You're not coming to Seattle?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, I was there last year. Second of all, that's so far away. You think I'm gonna cut from Kentucky to go straight to Seattle because you said so?"
Yeah. I
So,
think people don't understand like the logistical aspects that go into a
oh my
lot of
gosh,
these
yeah.
things. I mean, as I think van life can seem really like free hippie style, especially with like the specific influencers who advertise that kind
Make
of
it look so
lifestyle, but
cool.
it's
Yeah.
so you have to be kind of type A to like especially when you're doing it for like certain things and on some kind of schedule, you kind of have to be extremely good at planning and like also pivoting and knowing what decisions to make in the moment and things of that
Mhm.
nature. It's definitely not like as easy as I think some people assume it is by watching a YouTube video.
Right. I've cried so much. I've made some really dumb mistakes. I actually just had like a minor crash out on Instagram the other day because I was so good at what I did for work, and I'm college educated, and I've worked hard to get to where I was. And when I reached the summit of that professional experience and took a look around, I thought, this is not where I want to be. This is not who I am. It was really, really hard to take a step away and do what I felt was the right thing, not just for me, but like ethically do the right thing. And I have been humbled so many times. I am a car enthusiast. I had a really cool classic car when I was in college. I watched my dad maintain classic cars he's had, but this is a Japanese import and it takes diesel, and explaining to people, even mechanics, about the things that I need, and of course they're worried about doing things for liability reasons. I'm sure they could change my oil just as easily as any other car, but they're not interested in it. And then when I have conversations about the build out, oh my gosh, the build out was actually an amazing coincidence, and I'm really glad that it happened the way that it did last year. My good friend Rocky got married in Portland about a week after I picked it up, and I had shown up and it was just a disheveled mess because I thought, I'm in Washington State. I don't know anybody in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to take it as it comes. And his uncle was at the brunch the day after the wedding and was like, hey, I want to look at your van. He was an enthusiast who has built out several RVs and boats. He ended up helping me with my build over the summer. And out of the goodness of his own heart, completely for free, his wife was like
That's
cooking us
amazing.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner at their house, down in Southern California while we were working all day. And he was so kind and patient with me. And I think when I left that situation and then had to go get things like a full tint or some body work done or get some other mechanical issues fixed, I just felt so stupid. And even reaching out to some teams, I'm like, "Hi, I don't know how to ask for what I want because
Mhm.
I'm not in the press box most times. I don't have um I don't have the best handle on what it is I'm offering yet, even though fan POV is the easiest way to describe it. But the other day I went and got some body work done on my bumper, and I had a bumper guard on it to cover the scratched paint that it had on it when it arrived. And I the gentleman who helped came highly recommended from someone in my parents' church congregation, and he didn't speak English hardly at all. And I have, by the way, like the most embarrassing thing about me is that I know no Spanish. And I was so embarrassed and anxious to talk to him because I thought it should not have to be this way. I've followed soccer enough. I grew up in Southern California enough. Like I should freaking know Spanish by now. But at no point during the conversation did I realize, oh, I want you to do my bumper. This is what we agreed on, price we agreed on, etc. That I should have either specified for him to take off the bumper guard or that I should have taken off the bumper guard. Front bumper looks fantastic. The back bumper looks fantastic until you peel the bumper guard away. He left it on, he painted around it. And
Oh,
oh my gosh, I cried like an idiot. I pulled out my phone and recorded me crying like an idiot because I thought, I am I'm smart. I'm a smart person. I know what I'm doing, but why? Why is this happening to me? Why do I feel so out of my element? And again, love my online community. They're like, first of all, you're gonna be okay. Second of all, give yourself some grace. This is brand new. And as I see, because I am type A, I have a unhealthy obsession with productivity, which isn't productive, by the way. It never is. But sometimes when I look around at these other agencies and other like individual creators doing really, really cool things and churning content out, and I would consider Cincy Soccer Talk that exact. I mean, the content that you guys provide, journalism, by the way, like actual journalism, has been so helpful for me in times, especially now in the van where I can't watch games like I used to. I am at a game every weekend, sometimes 2 games a weekend. Watching people do that and accomplish that, I feel like I'm not contributing enough. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like there's some missing element of all of this that somehow hasn't clicked for me because I'm not doing like 3 reels a day, 3 TikToks a day. Like, but again, the grace is a big thing. And knowing that most people in their 30s do not uproot their life like this at all. It makes me feel like whatever it is I do, so long as I'm surviving and my mental health is better than it was this time last year, the year before, that I am succeeding.
Yeah.
And in that regard, I am succeeding. I truly am the happiest I have ever been as an adult.
Yeah. I relate to that a lot. For one, Cincinnati Soccer Dog has a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you like don't get to see behind the scenes. There's so many of us doing so many different things. So yes, we churn out a lot of content and it's good content, but we have a lot of people working on things,
Yeah.
which definitely makes a difference. But yeah, also as someone who like left their career as a like Fortune 500 corporate software engineer,
You get it.
yeah, it like, and again, I have that same feeling of like, I'm smart. I was making really good money. I was doing like I had a really difficult major. I majored in computer science and I had a really difficult job that was like prestigious and like exciting. And I was like a female in it and there weren't that many. And I was
Mhm.
representing for myself and for others. And I was so unhappy. And it
Yeah.
wasn't the company or really even like the job itself. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. It was a very independent role. It was very technical and it wasn't my passion. At the end of the day, I like to talk. I like to be people facing and it was destroying my mental health.
Yeah.
And it just like I wasn't getting anything out of it for me anymore. And so leaving that, I've literally spent the last couple years freelancing, but every couple months I kind of have that moment of like, what the heck am I
What did
doing?
I do? Yeah.
What did I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Every time I want to like, I don't know, purchase something, I'm like, oh man, that would have been
Mhm.
easier with that salary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's just, I've kind of had to make peace with like, that is the human experience, especially in the like age that I'm in right now. I feel like sometimes I look around and I look at people and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have their stuff together. Like they
They
went to
own a
college, got a
home or
job,
like,
got married,
yeah.
bought a house. And I've done a couple of those things. And I think making peace with the fact that it's not linear. And then also like peeling back the curtain on those people. They might like look perfect and like put together on the outside, but everyone has their own stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's going through like everyone is still figuring it out day by day. No one really knows what they're doing. And I think just kind of like making peace with that and understanding like this is a common human experience. And I'm just very privileged to be able to kind of explore right now, to freelance, to do things that I enjoy doing, to figure it out. And like sitting in gratitude with that, I think has been like the biggest thing for me of like, I have the ability right now to do things in a way where I don't have all that pressure on me. And that kind of helps me keep going, I think.
Yeah. And I think the human aspect, the person behind the camera or the person in the van here, I think the grace I've given myself, even just this week, I am currently at my brother and sister-in-law's place. I'm one of 4 siblings. He's the oldest, and I'm the third. And my parents live on the coast of Georgia. So I don't see them hardly at all. And in the past few years, especially with COVID, I feel like the existential crisis I was having related to my career and my own place in society also meant that I was questioning my values with regard to the relationships with my family. And so I went to the Atlanta Miami game on Sunday, and I came back down to their house, and I've been staying here with them a couple days. Am I making content about being at my brother and sister-in-law's house? No. I mean, they like soccer. We watched some soccer on TV. Watched the Nations League semifinal last night. To me, I'm like, I'm walking away from this particular week of my trip with less content, but with a really great cluster of memories that I got to hang out with my niece and nephew, that I got to watch my niece go to horseback riding lessons yesterday, that we got to sit down and talk about what their interests are, and that I got to check in with them, that I got to, during the off season, lived with my parents on the coast. Something we all made fun of, or have made fun of people for doing in the past. And now I'm like, what a luxury, what a joy to work on being an adult child and having an adult relationship with my parents. And last year I stopped through Utah, where both my sisters live, and I was there for 5 weeks. When as an adult, unless your parent is sick and in need of care, there's so many of us that don't get the chance to do that. And I feel like when I look back on all of this, I would be so much more embarrassed if I said, no, I can't come hang out. I'd like to go do content around Atlanta, than if I said, like, yeah, I would love to spend time with you guys. This is the only stop I'm making in Atlanta for the foreseeable future. I would love to hang out and connect. And that to me is, it can be, again, with this unhealthy relationship with productivity, it can feel like maybe I'm not reaching my goals, and maybe I quit my career and got in a van to watch soccer for nothing if I don't have anything to show for it. But I'm also like, no, I do have something to show for it. When the world burns down and none of these apps you can be accessed anymore, the relationships that I've made with people, family or non-family. I mean, some of my closest friends that I have had the pleasure of building relationships with came from the road last year, which is crazy.
Yeah. I think,
It's truly a beautiful opportunity.
yeah. And I think the like key takeaway is just that like it's so much more than a sport. Like
Yes.
and like I said, for me, especially in Cincinnati, it's being a part of this community has made such an impact on my life that like I will probably stay in Cincinnati at least for the foreseeable future. And I don't have the intention to leave anymore. This was going to be just a
Yeah.
stop, a part, like a chapter of my story. And now it's become a place that I'm anchored to. And that, like, if I do have to leave one day, or if I do choose to leave, it's going to be probably the hardest place I've ever left. I think, and that's a really weird thing to kind of grapple with when
Yeah.
when I left my hometown, I was ready. Like Maryland, Annapolis it's very, it can feel, it's not a small town at all, but it can feel very small town and suffocating. And I'd lived there my entire life. I was ready to get out. And so that was an easy goodbye. And then college was very difficult for me. I did not love school. I mean, I loved my college experience, I'll say, but like
Sure.
the
Yeah.
academic portion was very hard. So I was ready to kind of be done and out of there.
Yeah.
And now this is the first place that I've lived that I'm like, it is going to be genuinely heartbreaking to leave here. And that's a big part of that is because of a silly little soccer team. Like, I think having that unique perspective when you go into the culture and the world of sports of like, at the end of the day, all of these people are human beings with hopes and dreams and stories and community around them. And if you embrace that when you watch sports and when you join those communities as a guest or as a local, I think it increases the value of that experience for you tenfold.
Yes. And I think to complement that, especially during this time, like I can't tell you, I probably shouldn't describe myself this way, but the way that I have talked to people about what it's like coming from 10 plus years in politics, I feel like a retired racehorse and an injured one at that. There is just so much that I have seen and witnessed and learned a lot from and grown a lot from. But I think in this climate, and as we continue in our growing pains as a country, because by the way, I see the United States as being in its teenage years, and teenagers are we were all a teenager. I was a hellacious teenager.
I was incredibly angsty.
Yeah, yeah. So was I. I mean,
Just
moving
mad
from
at the
California to Georgia halfway through high school put the
That's tough.
biggest chip on my shoulder, and I wore that thing for way longer than I should have. But I think in these experiences that I am having, and that I encourage other people to have, because by the way, I think what I should really be a missionary for right now is people going to away games. I think more people need to travel and see their team on the road. I think it would give a lot of people in Cincinnati a much greater appreciation for what they have. But I also think it would be really cool to see other MLS fans. But I think the important thing right now that I'm also reminding myself of is we have a way more in common than we have different.
Mm-hmm.
And soccer in this country would not at all be what it is without the recruitment effort of several different nationalities. We're seeing it happen. It's been happening in MLB, but it's happening more in soccer, where the culture and style of play and mentality and simple presence alone of all of these Central and South American countries are becoming a big topic of conversation. And I really like what that opens my mind to, because then I'm looking at things like, oh, this city has a Hispanic population, but what kind of Hispanic population? For DC, who did we have? We have a lot of Hondurans in DC.
A lot of Salvadorans too.
And a lot of people from El Salvador. And so that flair is different. It's a different kind of Hispanic culture, and it's different, and it's so rich and interesting and unique from city to city. And that's history. There's so much to peel back, like we've discussed, that isn't just a soccer game. And that is what I'm on the quest to do, because we know this. Cincy Soccer Talk has plenty of gentlemen who can talk about what happened during the game. And I love to do that with my group chat. But I'm like, I kind of want to talk about the human aspect. I want to remind you that at the end of the day, like, these people are human. Some of them are children, like 16-year-olds playing on the field. But we all showed up to the same place for the same cause. And I really love that.
I agree. I think for me, the culture has always been my favorite part. And like I said, I played the game. I love the game from an analytical level, even. I love the game, but the experience as a whole with the people around me is what I love the most. And like going to away games too. I've gone to a couple for several different sports, though I am kind of cursed every time I go to an away game, my team loses. So I'm kind of on hold right now.
You don't need to go into anymore. Yeah. I think you're
okay. But experiencing other fans and other stadiums and arenas has always been just absolutely fascinating to me. And like talking to those fans, talking to the fans of the other team, while like, yeah, you might hate our team and want yours to win, but I have made so many great friends and like experiences from other like rival teams. And I think that's a takeaway. I don't remember what the score of the game was 6 years ago, but I remember and still keep in contact with the friends that I made at the tailgate. Right. And so I think that's like the takeaway for me, at least.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Well, I think we'll wrap up here. Cheyenne, thank you so much for joining us on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. I loved hearing about your experience, and I'm really excited for everyone else to kind of follow you along in the rest of your journey. And we will love to host
Thank
you in
you.
Cincinnati if you can make it.
Oh my gosh, please. That my idea is to have that van out and for people to see it and someone to talk to about it in person. So you'll see me and it together. We're definitely we're inseparable. So
Package deal.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cheyenne.
Thank you.